Caitlin Clark all night tonight.
Are you talking about my high school experience? Clark connects!
Caitlin Clark celebrated harder than anyone else. The amount of it is like she's not a real champion. They won it without her. And I'm like, the only reason they got to the final was because she had a 32-point near triple-double.
The WNBA All-Star voting results just revealed something that has the basketball world talking, and it's not what you'd expect. While Caitlin Clark dominated fan voting with 1.3 million votes and was named All-Star captain, the player voting tells a completely different story that's raising some serious questions about what's really happening behind the scenes. WNBA players ranked Caitlin Clark as the 9th best guard in the league. Let that sink in for a moment. This is the same player who averages 18.2 points and 8.9 assists per game, gets double-teamed regularly, and has single-handedly transformed the league's popularity and financial outlook. But here's what's really getting people's attention and sparking debates across social media. They ranked her below her own teammate on the Indiana Fever.
Like, she got that team to the final with that win against the New York Liberty. He was a major reason they got to the final, and
think about the implications of that for a second. The disconnect between fan perception, media rankings, and player votes has created one of the biggest controversies in recent WNBA history, and it's revealing some uncomfortable truths about how professional athletes view each other. I'm going to break down exactly what happened with these rankings, analyze the statistical evidence that either supports or contradicts these votes, explore why there's such a massive gap between different voting groups, and examine what this means for the league's credibility and future moving forward. Each group ranks players separately, and then those rankings are combined using a weighted average to determine the final result.
like, they don't get there without Angel Reese. Let's be honest, Angel Reese was the second best player after Chelsea Gray, but like, again, it's 3-on-3. Chelsea Gray was the best player in the freaking world, and she's the fourth best or the third best player on a 500 team in the WNBA.
Clark absolutely dominated the fan vote with 1,293,526 votes. And to put that in perspective, that's more than the entire top 30 players combined got in 2023, the year before she entered the league. The fan support isn't just strong, it's historically unprecedented. We're talking about a level of fan engagement that the WNBA has never seen before. The media ranked her third among guards, which seems pretty reasonable when you consider her statistical production, her impact on games, and the way opposing teams have to game plan specifically around stopping her. Most basketball analysts and reporters who cover the league regularly have been consistent in recognizing her elite-level play. But the player vote? That's where things get really interesting and frankly puzzling. Players ranked Clark 9th among guards, and here's the part that's really raised eyebrows across the basketball community. They didn't even rank her as the best guard on her own team. Let me repeat that because it's important. Her fellow WNBA players don't think she's the best guard on the Indiana Fever. Players ranked her teammate Kelsey Mitchell higher than Clark in their voting. Now, Mitchell is definitely a solid player and has been a consistent contributor for Indiana. But when you look at the raw numbers, she's averaging 11.5 points and 3.2 assists compared to Clark's 18.2 points and 8.9 assists. The statistical gap is pretty significant across almost every major category. If you want to see how deep this ranking controversy goes, what the actual numbers tell us, and why some people are calling this the biggest disconnect in professional sports voting history, hit that subscribe button because we're about to dive into some pretty surprising comparisons that might change how you think about professional athlete relationships. Let's look at the statistical reality behind this 9th place ranking. Clark is tied for the league lead in assists at 8.9 per game. The only player ahead of her is Phoenix's Alyssa Thomas at 9.3, but Thomas has only played 12 games this season compared to Clark's much larger sample size. Clark is also averaging 18.2 points per game while being the primary focus of opposing defenses. Teams regularly face guard her from half court and send help defenders whenever she touches the ball. Those are typically the defensive strategies you use against elite players, not players you consider to be 9th best at their position. Here's where the player rankings become really hard to understand. Natasha Cloud was ranked 4th by players despite averaging 9.1 points per game, literally half of Clark's scoring output. Similarly, other guards ranked ahead of Clark by players have significantly lower statistical production across most major categories. The defensive attention Clark receives also doesn't match up with a 9th place ranking. Sophie Cunningham mentioned in a recent interview that teams have the Indiana Fever circled on their calendars, and that nobody likes playing the Indiana Fever. That level of focus and game planning typically isn't directed at teams led by role players. But the player voting didn't just affect Clark. Her teammate Aaliyah Boston, who's having arguably the best season of her career and leads the league in field goal percentage at 64%, was also ranked 9th by players in the front court voting. Boston is putting up career numbers across multiple categories, yet players ranked rookie Kiki Arifin 8th ahead of Boston. This creates a pattern that's hard to ignore. Both key Indiana Fever players received identical 9th place rankings from their peers, despite both having strong statistical cases for much higher recognition. The controversy caught the attention of ESPN analyst Dick Vitale, who didn't hold back in his response. He called it absolutely pure jealousy and pointed out something important. Someday, they will realize what she has done for all of the players in the WNBA. Chartered planes, increase in salaries, sold-out crowds, improved TV ratings. Vitale's point about Clark's economic impact is actually backed up by concrete evidence. The league implemented charter flights league-wide, largely due to increased revenue that coincided with Clark's arrival. Player salaries have increased across the board. TV ratings have reached record levels. Arenas that used to average 4,000 fans now regularly sell out when Indiana comes to town. All-Star voting participation increased dramatically compared to pre-Clark seasons. The fan reaction has been swift and pointed. Social media lit up with people questioning the logic of the player rankings. One fan sign that went viral captured the sentiment: 9th in your rankings, 1st in your nightmares. Fans are asking reasonable questions like, if she's the 9th best guard, why do teams guard her like she's a superstar? This situation raises some legitimate questions about how professional sports leagues should handle voting processes. When there's such a significant disconnect between fan perception, media assessment, statistical performance, and peer evaluation, it creates credibility questions. Fans see one thing, media sees mostly the same thing, numbers support that view, but players see something completely different. The optics are challenging for the league. It appears that the group most directly benefiting from Clark's popularity boost is the same group that ranks her lowest. Whether that's intentional or not, it creates an uncomfortable narrative about how established players view newcomers who generate significant attention. Here's what's particularly interesting about this whole situation. The attempted slight might have backfired completely. When someone gets ranked 9th but still dominates every other metric, fan votes, media coverage, defensive attention, arena attendance, it actually highlights their importance rather than diminishing it. Clark remains the All-Star captain with the most fan votes in WNBA history. She continues to get the most media coverage and sell out arenas. The ranking reveals more about the voters than it does about her actual impact on basketball games. Despite the controversy around her ranking, Clark's on-court production continues to speak for itself. She became the fastest player to reach 350 assists in WNBA history, and she's putting together what could be one of the best sophomore seasons in league history. Viewership numbers continue to break records when she plays. The reality is that players can vote however they choose, but they can't vote away measurable results. They can't vote away the millions of fans who tune in specifically to watch her play. They can't vote away the economic benefits the entire league has experienced. This situation might actually work in Clark's favor long term. Having something to prove can be powerful motivation for elite competitors. Every game now becomes an opportunity to demonstrate why the player rankings don't match the reality of her impact. Looking ahead, this controversy sets up some interesting dynamics for the rest of the season and beyond. Future stars watching this situation unfold will note how the league handles its biggest draws. But for Clark specifically, she doesn't need validation from player votes when she has validation from fans, media, statistics, and economic impact. The 9th best guard just became the most talked about player in women's basketball. The 9th best guard just broke All-Star voting records. The 9th best guard continues to be the primary storyline wherever she plays. If that's what 9th place looks like in the WNBA, it raises some interesting questions about how player evaluation actually works in professional sports. What's your take on this situation? Do you think there are legitimate basketball reasons for the player rankings, or does this reveal something about league dynamics? Drop your thoughts in the comments because this conversation is definitely continuing. If you made it through this entire breakdown, you're clearly interested in the real story behind the headlines. Hit that subscribe button and notification bell because as this season progresses, there's going to be a lot more to discuss about how this all plays out. Thanks for watching, and remember, sometimes the most interesting stories are in the numbers that don't quite add up.